That's fine. Hello, everyone. Let me quickly set up my background effects. All right, Ryan. Thank you, Ryan. Amen. Hello, everyone. Give me a couple of minutes and I'll be sharing my screen here. Thanks for staying put. Moderator was not here and we were waiting for someone to bring me in. And hope you guys can see my screen. I'm the moderator, but I don't have access. So, all right, no problem, Fernando. I'll make you also a presenter. All right, you're a presenter. All right, guys, let's kick it off. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Community Days Mexico City. It was SPS Mexico City last year, and now it's Community Days. So, if you have not seen Community Days website, do visit communitydays.org, and you will be able to see all the conferences and speaking sessions happening almost every week, I would say. And thank you for hosting me, Mexico City. I'm really sad that I'm not able to come up there in person and join you in SharePoint, but maybe someday later, or maybe next year, I would say. All right. So today I'll be covering about what, where, and of Microsoft Graph. It's like www of Microsoft Graph, what I call them as. Like, what is it? Where is it? Why is it? Have any one of you worked or know about Microsoft Graph? Just put up something on the comment. I'm having a check here, so I'll be able to see it. And do, if you have any questions while I'm presenting, do stop me, and I'm always there to answer you all. All righty. So so talking about me, okay, I am Manpreet. I'm an architect in technology at Cognizant. I'm also an MVP in Office Services and Services. I'm MVP at C Sharp Community as well, and you can always find me on my social platforms here. Super simple, Manpreet here. Just ping me later if you have any doubts or any questions or anything you want to talk about Microsoft 365 as well. Just ping me down. All right, so today's agenda is quite simple. I want you to understand what is Microsoft Graph, where it can be used, and why are we using it actually. Uh, I'm going to talk about the Graph API, how it functions. Show you Graph Explorer. I'm more of a demo person. I don't like presenting with the slides and decks. So I'll show you some things in real time, how we are doing, how we are executing. And do feel free to join me while I'm doing some of the stuff. It's easy. It's not that typical, and I'll share you just code snippets and all the stuffs on the chat. So we'll take it from there. All right. All right. The basic question is Microsoft Graph. The name is so fancy, Microsoft Graph. Like, but we hardly is aware of what it does. Remember when we were using SharePoint 2010 and before MOS and all the stuff? We used to call REST APIs as SPFA on the URL, and we used to pass the APIs, right? Like, now this is just a new wrapper on the APIs, a more clear, like a single endpoint called graph.microsoft.com. That is where this comes as a picture, and it's widely used in all Microsoft products. Any and every product of Microsoft is now connected to Graph API, and the list is growing. We will see the list. It's a really long list. So talking about Microsoft Graph API, it's more of, let me all right. It's more of an endpoint where you see you're connected to Outlook, you're connected to Teams, you're connected to your calendar, groups, all the Microsoft products, PPD, Excel sheet, OneDrive, SharePoint, and everything. But along with the internal Microsoft products, you can even connect to the external products as well. How? That's the best part of it. So, for example, you have ServiceNow, or you're having Salesforce, or any content base which has an open API. Even you can have your own graph, like Azure DB or something like that as a graph API. You can connect it through Microsoft Graph. Very simple, right? It seems, but it is very simple. All right, so So what is Microsoft Graph in company? So it's just nothing but a gateway to data. It's like a single endpoint graph.microsoft.endpoint, which provide access to the rich people-centric data. And that's where you see the productivity of the organizations can be improved. That's where you can improve more apps into your app catalog. You can bring in more data from external products, from internal Microsoft products. So it's like a mix and mix of everything. That's where the graph comes in picture. And you have a list of graph connectors to connect by default by Microsoft, and you can also create your own. Wait 1 second, let me just bring this here. All right. So where do we use Microsoft Graph? As I was talking about, so it's already there in all your Microsoft products, whether you're using Delve, Outlook, OneDrive, PowerPoint. So instead of APIs, we call them as Microsoft Graph, where they are well suitably connected to each other. It's like a model where you streamline the access, you can scale the delivery, you can scale the applications, you can work on the Azure Active Directory. It's more of complete package. So now you have a graph endpoint, for example, right? And you want to connect it to a platform. You're trying to call some services. All can be done using same endpoint, graph.microsoft.com, and you can call all the different products. And this works on tenant level, on the organization level, on the multi-tenant level, as well as external, as I was talking about. So it has rich context, deep insight, real-time updates because it's an API, of course, and broader reach. I think 90% of the Fortune 500 companies have already been using Microsoft data. And to be honest, everyone, it's not 90%, it's 100% people. Even Microsoft in the back end is nothing but graph, right? That's what they brought it like as a graph API. They're using every operations you do using your Power Automate or stuff like I want to create a team using Power Automate. It's all graph. The endpoints are graph. The basics of every URI you are passing is all Microsoft Graph. And there are a number of users, of course, that's never gonna, it's like everyone is using Microsoft Graph knowingly or unknowingly, is what I feel. So if you see, this is our Microsoft 365 platform, right? So it's built into Experience, which is all the apps and bots and device native applications, which all are running on the application. And on the end, there are out of the box, which we have Teams, Documents, SharePoint, OneDrive. So both needs a connection, right? Like earlier time, SharePoint was just used as a database, just for storing documents, setting up alerts, and some of the workflows for sending an email using SharePoint Designer, right? Now, when you see SharePoint, it's totally different. The modern workplace solutions on SharePoint are quite dynamic. They have a cover of a Teams as a UI, and on the backend is SharePoint. The operation is too native from Dataverse connections to third-party applications to Monday.com to Salesforce, or so many stuff, right? So it's heavily loaded. Now, how will you connect these, right? Of course, you'll connect them from REST API, but using those REST API or those extensions, you have graph.microsoft.com to connect similar thing for all your products. Now, for example, you're working on a Salesforce project and you want to, whenever a new Salesforce trigger triage log is created, for example, you want it to be created on the Teams channel, like a notification. You can do that through Salesforce. Similar process. You can do an operation, call off your Graph API endpoint, and it will do the same on the Microsoft tenant. So, or if you want to reverse it, now if I want to do something on the other endpoint, again you can do the same. So this Microsoft Graph endpoint is nothing but I would say incoming direction of I would say delivering data, which any way you can use it. You can bring in external data, you can use it for internal data, you can use it for n number of operations while you're doing processes. And it's not like you call one endpoint, for example, I call Teams and then I'm not able to, you can call n number of endpoints just passing the URI parameters. I know it's fancy. It takes a minute. Even when I started it, it was really different. But it became so easy because Microsoft started evolving. It started brought you the API in different formats, in different scripting. You can use it for C Sharp, Python, PowerShell, and client side, anything. anything you ask for is right now available. If you see, these are the gateways, and actually the list is more bigger than that what we have. These are the languages you can have support the platform from Android to Ruby to everything. And and that's where you will feel that the endpoints is really important right now. All right, let's talk about Graph Explorer. Now, to play around with it, how will you know here? Before we used to have an list of APIs on an MSDN. We used to copy from there and pass our parameters and I would say debug our code and console application and see whether it's working or not, right? But now you have a proper Graph Explorer where you can test your Graph API endpoint. You can see the available API endpoints you have. You can play around with that. And as I said, like, I'll show you quickly demo. Like bring in the screen here. 1 second. And guys, if you have any questions, as I said, like just ping me on the chat here. I'm having a look on the chat. And of course, if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me later. But 1 second. All right, this is it. 50% from. All right, here's my browser. All right, so this is if you go to everyone, if you are on your laptops, just feel free to go to graph.microsoft.com. It's super simple, or you can just type for graph. Here, I'll just show you graph.microsoft.com. Very simple. You will have completely about the API stuff, 30 days Microsoft Graph Challenge, which is going on. It just started yesterday. Really fun. You have chances to win prizes today. Do register for that. And what you can do, as I was talking about, you can build applications, you can build external data inside, accessible data for insights and analytics. Just a lot. That's just a lot. So I'm going to show you everything in real time, how you can access, how you can build applications. It's really fun. So you can on the Microsoft Graph, developer.microsoft.com, you can go to Graph Explorer here. And if your organization is in Active Directory, try to sign in here. There will be a person. I have already signed in, so showing my ID and my email ID. Just sign in there. And so if you see, this is the graph endpoint. Okay, so it's like a so the Graph Explorer is nothing but a web interface. Like you're exploring Microsoft Graph API. You can consider this as a sandbox for developers, right? You come in here, you play around with the API, you set your JSON format you want it, and then you move ahead with that. All right. This is where the Graph Explorer comes in picture. So 1 second, where's my deck? All right. So Graph API is nothing but like a request, like you're passing it through an endpoint, and then you're calling the graph.microsoft.com, the HTTP method, you're passing the version. The version is also not important. It's all is by default 1.0. It's been 2, 3 years. I'm waiting for the next version, but I don't think there's gonna be a next version because it's either beta or it's version 1.0. So it's very easy. So you can skip that. You can put the resource where you're getting the data from, and then the query parameters. Okay, so it's more of the resourcing that you're referencing, or either seeing the SharePoint or something, and then the O data is the query which you're gonna call in and bring in the APIs along with it. Now, what we get back is a response. Like, of course, when an API, you get a status code whether it was failing, it ran, and you'll have a response message and a next link. Now we have these following HTTP methods on a Graph API. If you use Postman, which I'll show you today, again, Postman is the love for all API lovers. I know my friends who go crazy on Postman, really. Even a Graph Explorer provide you get post patch put delete levels of HTTP methods for you to call in and test your application here. But of course, if you need something else, you can always run it on the Postman and get more detail out of it. All right, so before going to the other one, so this is the Graph Explorer. So like if you see I'm passing an endpoint graph.microsoft.com version 1.0, as I said, is by default. And me is like my profile, right? And these are the HTTP methods I have: get, put, push, bash, delete. All right. And I was talking about the versioning. These are the two versionings. It's been 3, 4 years, nothing changed. So it's gonna be V 1.0. And I think that's it. Like once it's in beta, it's published, it means V 1.0. All right. So I'm just going to click on run query. And these are getting started. So once you are logging in into graphexplorer.com, try to come in here and click on getting started. You will, and just click on those. So when I run my query, graph.microsoft point, one single line API endpoint, you see the details I'm getting? I'm getting my display name, I'm getting a job title, office location, every single detail from is here, from email ID to everything, just using a single endpoint. So what do you think when in SharePoint we are doing or in Power Automate? It's the same way. But yeah, it's a wrapper on a Power Automate which will be doing, we're calling Microsoft services and then getting. Though I think in future they might made it as graph as an endpoint or an action on the Power Automate because that's what it's doing. Similar way operations like get my email. If you see this is my messages which is coming, I don't think it will come because yeah, I'm not logged in with an admin, right? So it didn't come in. But when I'm logging into my profile, I can see my profile. So similar will happen if you are not a tenant admin. But if you're a tenant admin, you'll be able to do it. Now I'm a tenant admin of Microsoft Teams, right? So if you see here on the list, so this is the list I have. These many API endpoints are already available. So from applications which has n number of applications you can use it. You can create a new applications on Azure and stuff like that. Excel extension, group, insights, teams, uh, to do OneDrive, OneNote, SharePoint. Just call it. Just see the list. It's crazy list, right? Even user activities. You can create a user activity in history, get recent user activities. So just imagine the operation, any operations, any custom operations. And if you're not using Power Automate, you can call an HTTP method and pass the same endpoint. It will work the similar way, right? Or if you're writing a code and you're building an SPFX model, graph it is. Like if you're using a search web part, or if you're using a list or a query web part, call the Graph Explorer. Very indecisively, if you see the data. Okay. Now let's talk about the data. Okay. So now I get this response preview. I get everything here, right? On the response header, I can see what happened, what was my client request ID and stuff. You can even get code snippets. So if I'm working on C# code, you come here, copy this code, it will and run it on the console. It will work the same, including JavaScript, Java, Go, and PowerShell. Simple, right? Like you just import the same and get the user ID and it will work the same. I'm going to show you the PowerShell. So today I want to show you how we can actually do a native coding application. I'll show you PowerShell. I'm already a little running behind. That's why I'm going fast, but and I'll try to do Postman as well. Or just will I'll show you how to even connect Postman. So along with the code snippets you get here on the toolkit component, you get the whole component how and you can design it the way you want it. You can have it in HTML mode, you can have it in GSS, or you can have it in CSS mode. Take your time to load it. And of course you have adaptive card as well for it. It's still loading. So, and which you can just copy and paste it and use it on real time on your Power Automate or your console applications. Uh, so if you see, this is how quickly you can do an operation in any of the Microsoft products using the single endpoint. Now, for example, if you have vendors and like you have third-party product companies who wants to do operation, like as I was talking about, sending in this basic notification on a team channel that this is the request which has been come in Workday or Salesforce or any service now. Any service now, for example, this is a new help desk ticket created, and if there's an escalation, go to this channel. If there's no escalation, go to this team. Those are some of the stuff which you can do it here while the toolkit is opening. Let me click here. All right, it's still not opening. All right, like so if you know that there's a Microsoft Graph Toolkit playground, you can play around with cards, with events, RTL, localization, anonymous display. You can play around with it and just see. Those were the times where we need to write every single line of code for everything. You're gonna come here, you're just gonna see the design. You can even put some localizations up here, how it's gonna look, how it looks, and just copy the same HTML, JSS, or CSS format and use it. What else you require? Easy, easy content management. Really easy content management. Right. And then when you come back here on the Graph Explorer, let me go back. For example, Teams, like everybody use Teams. We are still on a Teams having a call together. So, for example, I want to get my joint. So if you see the endpoint I'm passing, graph.mysql.com version me as a resource and the join teams, I am passing I'm gonna click on that query. And it was the okay status. Before I go there, if you see the request body request header, you can even modify what key are you looking for, what value you're passing through. You can even modify permissions. Like I have consent for some of these because I'm a team administrator. If you saw, I failed one because I was not a tenant administrator. And then and you can use this access token. Like once you have run it, you can use this access token, put it on a Postman and do your operations there, or you can do on it on your own console application. So it's like a mix of match of both. Now when see when I was seeing, okay, wherever I'm join teams, fetch me that data. On a response preview, you see a list of every single teams I'm part of. So now you'll ask me one bit like, where can I use this kind of operations or something? I'll give you another scenario. For example, uh, a person is leaving the organization, for example, right? And you want him or her to be removed from every part of the team. Call an API, you get all the person, is she or he are part of the team, and you just get them removed. Pretty simple stuff, right? And what are you doing? You can run it on a PowerShell script. You don't need to be on a console application. You can create a bot which will do your operation using Graph API as a backend. You can create Power Automate which will do the same operation as bot API in the backend. So if you see any operations you want to do and which you're not able to find on a Power Automate template, you can call an HTTP method and get it on the API mode. That is Graphic. And really, I would say if you see Microsoft To Do, my best app on my phone, I use it for my personal. Even that is part of the API. So from OneDrive to OneNote, you see from events to calendar, you will see everything, all the perfect ways of doing it. Like for example, getting the root site of a SharePoint site, right? All right, let's see. All right. So this is my root side. Okay, so we saw it how we work in PowerShell, right? I'll actually show you how. Sorry, Graph Explorer. I'll show you on the PowerShell as well. So it provides me all the data of the root list I have on the SharePoint side, which is quite a lot. Anyways, so this is Graph Explorer, and everyone do have time to play with it. Like, it's very simple. It's free. Just try to sign in. And for example, if your company has actually secured you and will not allow you to sign in, don't worry, just go to samedeveloper.microsoft.com and try to create your own tenant, and you will be able to see uh, all those things on your own tenant. You can play around with this courses and queries, you will be able to see it. These are the resources also which it provides, what you can do, where you can do, so you can put it to switch your portal. Now, beta is something like which is already there, it's functioning. I just not, I would say I think they wait for a certain level of people to use the API and share the feedback. Once they get it, once they find that the API is quite stable, they make it from a beta way to V1.0. Remember when initially this was launched? I think it was 2 years now, maybe 2 or 3 years. Yeah, I think 3 years. There were just seven of those, what we see right now as queries, sample queries, and they were still growing, and most of them like were in beta. Then it started coming in from beta to V1.0, and now we have a huge list. Even on the themes, if you see, there is a categorizations where I see the whole themes here, as well as on the beta mode, which I see the beta here. Right? So these might be coming, but you can still use it. It will be functioning the same. Only what's the problem here will be once they move it to V1.0, you might have to change the version. But as I said, you can even run it without it. You don't need it to be running it without. All right, one second. All right, so let's go back to the deck. So this was Graph Explorer. Nice, right? Like you can feel or you can imagine like how easy it is to control the API endpoints right from here. And just doing a simple UI function. So it's like Power Apps, right? Power Apps became famous because of no code, low code solution. This Graph Explorer is like you don't need to go and debug and check whether your API endpoint is working fine or not. Just come here to this HTTP method and you'll be able to see everything. Now PowerShell. All right. So whatever we operations we did was on a graph Microsoft.com. Like, okay, you were saying, Manpreet, that's fine. Maximum we can come and see what's the preview result is coming, right? And we can use those endpoints and we can put it on the Power Automate as send an HTTP request and get all the details done. Perfect. Now, how do we do in different applications? Now we saw C# code is there, PowerShell is there. You can do it in Python, Ruby. There's so many ways of connecting. Like, just trust me. But my favorite is PowerShell. It's very freaking easy. Like, for example, I want to remove licenses of someone, or I want to do any operations on the teams, something like that. Schedule a job or something. I always love to do PowerShell. Uh, no, it is quick and easy. It's a process. But I would say it still undermines the Power Automate because PowerShell is like the engine of doing everything and anything. Sorry. So, so coming to PowerShell, very easy. I got a new laptop. Yesterday night I was just trying. I was thinking to do this demo on my own laptop, but then I was like, let me do it in my new laptop. So there were some of the things which was a prerequisite. I added on the deck as well because so that you are aware of what you need to do. I'm on Windows 11, so that I think it doesn't make any difference because my last laptop was in Windows 10. So they both are the same. You just need a PowerShell, which is 5.1 or later. I think every laptop has it. If not, do upgrade it. Install .NET Framework 4.7.2 or later, and you will have need a PowerShell yet to use. Just it's just like you're getting the latest version of the PowerShell. Alright. That's it. This is it. You don't need much of it. Very simple steps. I have a cheat sheet. I'll be running from my cheat sheet. I have it open here in a Word file and I'll open that also. So just run on your PowerShell, install module name Microsoft Graph. That's it. It's gonna take 2 to 4 minutes, maybe more. I think yesterday it took me around the same. So I've already installed it. I'm gonna open it up and show you how it works. And all right, before I show you the screenshot. So once you install, you will have to connect to the graph, use your account. You have to give this consent, and that's it. It will say you're welcome to Microsoft Graph. It's really cool. Oh, well, let me come back to the PowerShell. So I'm gonna open the Windows PowerShell, run it with an administration rights. All right, run as administrator. All right, so I'll open it here. It looks nice. So first I'll see whether I have the graph working fine or something happened last night and minions took it away. And I'll just see the installed module of Microsoft Graph I have on my system. And there I said it won't. Oh yeah, it's just because I have a gap here. 1 second. Let me try to connect it first. All right. So if you see, I'm connected. So it shows welcome to Microsoft Graph. All right. So that's the perfect way. So I am already connected, so that it showed me welcome to Microsoft Graph. But if, for example, you're doing something new, for example, you're trying it for the first time, log in with the tenant admin ID you have, because it won't take a personal account, and then you'll be able to part of it. All right. Now let's go back to seeing the versions I'm having. Good. Uh, there's something wrong on the. Oh, sorry, there's a star there. All right. Try to connect again. All right, I'm connected. Let me run one script and see whether I'm able to connect to the user. All right, yep, I'm connected. So if you see, the endpoint of PowerShell scripting is quite different. It provides a different models. So let me show you. I was showing the get command here. All right. So for example, I want to see all the licenses I have here on the list. There you go. Okay, now it's working fine. All right. So So if you see, these are the commands I have on the license. Like I want to invoke a license of a person. I want to add someone. I can just come up here instead of going open an admin center. I can come to the PowerShell script right there, pass the URL parameters, and I'm quite in there. And if you see here on the graph endpoint where I'm passing here, all right, I can zoom it a little for you guys. All right, yeah. So this is the command. All right. So this is the command I'm using, get mg user was managing it. You get the UR user and user ID. You get the list of users. This is the method or the URI you're trying to pass on the API endpoint. And once you pass that, you will be able to see the output and the permissions you want to give them, read and all and stuff like that. So this is I'm getting. You can even push it back and get it back all the details. So similarly, while I was doing the licenses, there are a list of commands just for graph licenses from groups to users to applications to anything. I'll show you all the licenses first we have. All right, let's go back to the, for example, the USUI Outlook, right? We all use Outlook. See the list of commands it has. Sorry, I did something. All right. So here are the different actions, or I would say the command types which are available on only for Outlook. Similarly, let's see what Teams. Painless, useless, right? It took a fast. Now, when your laptop is running fast, it takes a minute when it comes back. But if you see this list, I'm still scrolling up. All right, so there's a tip. Like I want to add a new channel team member. I want to add a new team member. I wanted to create a private channel. I think that's the very important thing. Everybody is asking on the forums, when will there be a Power Automate, for example, to create a private channel? It's not there yet, right? I know people are still voting it for it as on the user voice, but it's not there. So, like if, for example, you want to create a private team or a private channel, you cannot do it on the Teams or Power Automate, but you can use Power Automate to call an HTTP method and then do it using Graph API endpoint, or you can do it in the PowerShell, coming up here, running the PowerShell script, one single line of script, and you have so many operations to do. All right. And this is just like few of the examples we are trying to see here, right? Okay. Now when we see the beta versions of it code, let me scroll down. All right. Now when we see beta versions of it code, it's more advanced because of course it's in beta mode. And if you see, this is what I'm passing in. Like I can pass in the tags, you can pass in tag ID, you can pass an ID member. So that's why I was talking. Once this kind of URI is stable on the version 1.0, then the beta version it comes and becomes 1.0. So this is the beta, and you see this is more in detail than on a normal tag ID. And you're getting tag ID, members ID, and then teamwork tag member ID, which is quite the third level of what we're looking for. So this is how the PowerShell scripting is more easier, more adaptable. Like you can find things here rather than looking for stuff. Even for the user level, let's me run this snippet. So I saved all the snippets yesterday, and I'll share the deck with the organizers, and you can also play around with it. Just only you go to the PowerShell scripting, and it's really fun. And I have it all here, so you don't have to do much anything. All right, so on the user information, I can get information from the user's calendar, from his OneDrive, SharePoint, wherever that person chat messages, wherever that person's tagged. So, dude, that level of commands are already available on the Power Microsoft Graph. Okay, and okay, again another example, like as I was talking about, when the person is leaving, we need it to be see whether how many documents he owns or where are the files in the OneDrive and download it to a local or a repository where you can save those files for future references or let the manager review them. Everything can be done here. You can create a series of Graph API endpoints, pass in the user ID. First, like it will go first, remove the person from everywhere, revoke all his accesses, remove his accesses from a third party platforms, and then go and do this documentation. And so you can just create one script as in PowerShell, but you can do it in any other way you want, as a C sharp or a complete app model, and you can keep it running. This will show how faster and quicker you can get your information done. And if you see how the PowerShell works, in hardly in a minute you will be done and the ticket is solved. Okay, this person has been removed from the system. Done. Quick and easy. Now when it comes to same as licenses, removing licenses, it's happened so many times in our organization. People still have those E5 licenses and a company are paying for them even after they have left the company. Then we have to go back, especially in dev tenants. Nobody monitors dev tenants, right? Like, and so many people come and go, and the dev tenants are like always with E5 licenses and more of third-party vendors licenses, and they're still there, and you're paying for it every month. These are few of the operations you put up on a SharePoint list or something. Make it like a scheduler, read that SharePoint list every day. If something new entry comes in, PowerShell kicks in and do all these operations. That's where the Microsoft comes in picture. And that's what Graph is all about. Making it simpler for you, right? Now coming to my tenant. Oh, it's a big list. Let me clear some. All right, so I just passed a user ID command, get my top 10 people, will select with their IDs, display name, user principal name, and user template. I get all those people here with different model, different people, their email IDs and stuff like that. Though they're guest accounts, so they have as techplatform.onmicrosoft.com. So simple command, and I just one thing, all right? I so don't have to open the tenant and go look for it. These are few of the commands. You can directly pick it from the graph.microsoft.com under the PowerShell category, and you can play around with it. All right. So coming to the sites also like SharePoint, like okay, like I showed you on the Graph Explorer how to get your root site, right? How about here? I can show you here as well. Sorry, I'm bad at copying pasting today. Okay, let me see it. Right. So I'm getting the root site with an ID and display name. So that's my root site of my tenant. And with the ID and the display name as communication site. Now I can use this communication site. I can do operation creating a list. Once I get the site, I can do create a list. I can create a document library, do a number of operations using just those lists of PowerShell scripting I have. So see, that's the power of having them. And really, if you see the script here, one second, let me find that the commands for Teams. Let me go back to the commands of Teams. Okay. This list it started from 8 commands and now it's like a never going 200 commands in here. So like from a basic of clearing channel up reply reactions or to adding a team member, adding a team channel member, you have those minimalized operations which you can do on graph.explorer.com. That's why when I talk about graph, if you see here on the code snippet and I go to PowerShell, you can get the same snippet here. It's fetching, give it a minute. And so you don't have to look for or find for the code is right here. Import the module and get the user ID, channel ID. You can do all the operations right here on the PowerShell scripting. Of course, if you're using C Sharp, which I always favor, it's faster. It's more of an application, but PowerShell is like I'm running, I have admin rights to my command, Windows PowerShell. I can just come here and run it off. Easy, right? All right, let's go back to the deck. I have 10 minutes. I wanted to show you PowerShell, Postman. Okay. All right, that's just a cheat sheet. I'm gonna update it with more commands and I'm gonna send it to the people. And you can always reach out to me if you have any questions. All right, the minions are back. Coming to the Postman. The Postman is what every API lover says is their first love, right? And because it does a lot of things, right? It gives them an options like an API development. They can enhance, they can do development. Each step of building an API, you can do it here on Postman. Many other applications don't provide the single endpoint like graph.microsoft.com to connect with so many query or parameters or products so easily. It's a hard thing, and Postman makes it more easier. And Postman, I think it's a demo slide right here. Let me open up Postman here on my laptop. All right, there you go. All right, so this is Postman. Let's go to Explorer here. So before we used to, when the graph.microsoft.com and all their PowerShell or anything was announced, we used to go to GitHub and import them. But right now, Microsoft Graph is part of the world of APIs. I think if I search here somewhere, team. All right, if you see, there are Twitter, Slack, and a number of things. I think there's Microsoft Graph as well. Here you go. So you have the Microsoft Graph here as part of the API collections. So if you click on it, you see the overview. Okay, updated 2 years ago, 1 year ago, 1 year ago. 1 year ago is the recent one. Let's launch this. All right. So you have the API and endpoints directly here. You can create get requests on the applications, post create an application, requests and headers, and do n number of operations here. Like easy, right? Like and did you think and you can create an open request right on the Postman. You come here, you can pass the key, you can pass in the authorization. Authorization will be your application code of your tenant. And your header, your body, you don't need the prerequisite, and then you can see the testing how it's gonna look. And it provides you console application also to test the score of error and stuff. So, but I wanted to show you one thing, search, right? Search list. All right. All right, so this is the query, right? So how the query you're passing inside the graph endpoint is using the JSON format. It just you can pass like this is passing a list, like searching a list. You can pass a number of other parameters you're passing. You can have the same logic of and or while you are pushing in the data. So the endpoint will be taking them. Similar way while we were doing teams, right? Like it should be here. See, if you see the whole list is here, the whole updated list, which is nice. And when I go to Teams here, I can see get Teams. Similar way, you can see the body header. It's not coming. So similar way, you can pass in the Teams ID, and you can do the operations on the response ID. So and when we see the graph endpoint, right? Like set we search external. So these you all saw all along with Microsoft product, right? This is for external item. Yeah. If I go here, okay. Now I was talking about the external item. This is very important. It's quite a deep dive stuff. But do see, I have some sessions on YouTube. You'll love to see how you can create an external content type. Uh, so I was talking about service now, right? So there are tickets where we get assigned, and whenever we want to check on the ticket status or ticket, we have to open service now to check the tickets, right? No, you don't need to do that. All right. So you can create your own API endpoint with the search external item. This is the query, the V1.0 search. You can hit, like here I'm hitting Azure SQL connector. You can hit a ServiceNow API. ServiceNow APIs are all up there in the Google. There's a list of it. ServiceNow. All right, it provides you a whole list of REST API references. You can play around with this and search for it. So you can hit this, get the information from the different data warehouse they have. It's still loading. And then you can pass it from the content sources here. So, and then push it wherever you want it. You can push it on your application, team, channels, notification. And this is part of the search. You can put in the search. So what it helps is like, for example, there are status or changes in the document. No hub, knowledge base of Microsoft Search. You can just embed everything inside Microsoft Search. So if you have ServiceNow as a third party provider, um, anything which has open API, I always tell people, anything which has open API, you can go in, read all the data using the graph endpoint and store it in Microsoft Search. Once you store it, you can search the same data on any search engine you have on SharePoint, Outlook, OneDrive. That ServiceNow ticket will be reflecting on the search engine. What are the basic ways of it? You are crossing or limitizing people to waste time and effort of searching one file in different places. You're just using one search, which is your Microsoft search. You're coming to my search, you're searching, and then Endpointer is getting all data information from your SharePoint products, your Microsoft whole suite, as well as your third-party suite, whether it's ServiceNow, etc., etc. That's the benefit of it. And in the end, the Graph API endpoint, you can use it for operations, day-to-day operations, also for external vendors to use them to connect to your tenant. But yeah, they should have quite enough. But you can use app IDs and client secret keys and share the access with them, which is quite simple. So that's why Postman is. I have 5 minutes. I want to see if you have any questions. I'll give it a minute. I know I was cut off with like 14 minutes joining in late, so I need to rush. I would have shown you a nice Postman, but don't worry, Postman is quite simple. If you have reached till there, the collection API, just go to Azure, create an app ID, create a client ID, client secret key, just feed it to the Postman. It will create an access token, and you will be right there working on it. All right, yeah, Fernando.
Okay. Um, well, so I think I don't see any questions in the chat.
Yeah, sure. Sure, no problem. Yeah.
Um,
If you have any questions, to reach out to me.
yeah,
I'll ping you in the chat there.
yeah,
Yeah. And thank you to all the
that used to
sponsors, and
happen.
thank you, Fernando, for hosting me today. A big list of all
No,
the people doing an amazing job. Thank you for everyone.
no, thank you, Manpreet, for staying here in the first session of the Community Days Mexico City.
Thank you.
We're so happy to have you here and have a nice day.
You too. Take care. Enjoy the whole day,
All right.
people. Bye bye. Take care.
All right. Thank you. See you.
Micrófono. Hola. Hola, amigo. Welcome to Microsoft Community Days, Mexico City 2022. We would like to thank our sponsor who made this event possible. Remember to mention us in social media using the hashtag CityMexicoCity. For the next session, we will have Martin with the presentation Boost Your Productivity in Teams. Martin, thank you for being here with us today. Please go ahead. You have the control of the session.
Hi, hello, thank you for introduction. I will start in a moment, just enable all my stuff.